And now it's time for The Late Show with your host, PattyJack.
How's it going, everyone? I'm that socially awkward gamer you probably forgot existed, otherwise known as PattyJack, and I've brought a special friend to my channel. You don't see other people on my channel very often anymore because I'm such a loser and I'm so lonely. Hey, Ben, say hi to everyone.
Hi, you are such a loser.
I know. It's really sad. I hate myself. Anyways...
I hate you too.
Yeah, okay. Oh, Ben. Anyways, today we are here to talk about a little game you probably have never heard of. It's like an indie title, and...
Oh yeah, no, it's like underground, straight up.
Yeah, we only know about it because we're super hipsters. It's a little game called Fallout 4. It's coming out in a few days, depending on when I upload this video, which I'm not really sure of the exact day yet. And I decided that I wanted to bring Ben onto the channel because he's kind of a Fallout nerd.
Hi.
You nerd.
Yeah.
So the basic idea of this video is we're going to take a little talky talk about the game as it comes out. So I would like to get Ben's opinion on what he thinks the game is going to be like on release and how he thinks it's going to progress as it heads down through like the 1-year mark, the 2-year mark, etc.
So I think right off the bat, something that we've kind of come to expect. People have been making jokes for years now. They call them Bugthesda for a reason. Obviously they've spent some time with Q&A trying to work out as many bugs as possible, but trying to hit release, I think there's obviously going to be some bugs that are going to happen. More than likely, we can expect some bugs that might even be so far as quest breaking, causing, side quests to just, hang, keeping people from being able to finish them. We could have stuff like... That's not going to break the game, but stuff that could just be entertaining. Stuff like game physics, for example, when we had the giants in Skyrim sending people into the sky. We've had stuff like that happen with the VAT system when people shoot monsters in the head. The physics will just bug out and you have people's bodies stretching and flying through the air. I'm sure everybody's had that happen at least once by now.
That's kind of the charm of Bethesda games, though.
Moving into as the game progresses, though, I mean, they've already mentioned something about the season pass, so they obviously have some content planned down the road, so I think that's something else they're going to be looking into, along with squishing bugs. They did mention something, I believe, about some free content, but it's probably going to be minor stuff, kind of like how in Skyrim they had the mounted combat as one of the things that they added into the game post-release, so probably something small like that. But at the same time, I think a big roadmap thing for Bethesda is to really push on the emphasis for the BethesdaNet website. They really want to be able to host mods on their website and have it as a unified content system between the different platforms, between the current-gen consoles, the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and then the PC on Steam.
I'm sure the community is going to love the notion of that.
That being said, though, that's something that's going to be really interesting to keep an eye out on, not just because it's going to have to compete with the established websites such as the Nexus Mod Manager, the Nexus website and their Mod Manager, where they have something as simple as, hey, do you want to donate to this person? Click here if you do. If you don't, there you go. That's all you gotta do.
It's really interesting going forward because I know there has been rumors about paid mods maybe resurfacing. And people are saying, well, why don't you just make a donation button? Which I think is the logical answer, and that's the conclusion I would come to as well. And
what a lot of people have been saying about that is that Bethesda feel like they want their own cut, but at the same time, the thing is, if there's any sort of money involved with that sort of thing, the amount of money that would go to a mod creator, it means a lot more to them. That same amount of money isn't going to be worth nearly as much to a multi-million-dollar company, though. If a mod pulls in $2,000, that's a lot of money to a single person. $2,000 to a company like Bethesda? That's nothing.
Yeah, but when you get into the grand scheme of things, it does become something. I mean, when you look at how many views that, say, EA might pull on YouTube or something, if they get 2 million views on their YouTube video, if a mod got 2 million hits, right, that's still a pretty big chunk of money, at least enough to keep that server up and hosted, right?
Right.
So it could kind of pay for itself, but it all depends on if people will be interested in, say, donating.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because somebody already managed to find something in the end user license agreement for the game, where like on the Steam you can view the Fallout 4 end user license agreement, and one of the subsections, and I'm quoting it here, it says in subsection C, customized game materials must be distributed solely for free. However, here's the thing. This is for the end user. That has nothing to say that Bethesda cannot charge money for mods.
This is true. I mean...
So, I mean, the thing is, I feel like it's possible that they might basically pick up some of the big mod content makers and ask them, hey, do you have any ideas for mods that you want to make that you haven't already made? That you want to try to make as like Bethesda-sponsored mods to sell. Because then that's something they could sell multi-platform, because then they could say, well, okay, I guess that would depending on the limits of the current consoles, whether or not those mods could be released on the consoles, but I think paid mods is something that's going to end up on the console versions at the very least. If you look at Minecraft, for example, they had the skins you could buy. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some very light paid mods on the console versions, and same thing with the PC version if it's directly from Bethesda. As far as how they're handling that, though, I have zero idea. At this point, it's just all speculation.
I feel like if they were to implement any sort of paid mod system, the fact that it would have to be licensed through Bethesda, so they would say, hey, this mod is really popular, we'll bring you on to make some additional changes to it, and then we can charge users a bit for that, if it turns out to be a really good mod. So I feel like they would just kind of curate it through themselves, instead of having it be like a free curation system on, say, whatever their service would be, right?
And yeah, and that was a big part of the problem when they released paid mods on Steam, is that Valve has a hands-off policy, which frankly, it just doesn't work. People were stealing content and selling it, and nothing short of a cease and desist would basically get people to get it, removed from the website. And so if this is all done directly through Bethesda, where they're just cherry-picking the mods that they want to ask people, hey, would you like to sell this? We'll sponsor it or whatever. That almost, I don't want to say guarantees, but it helps assure a certain level of quality control, a certain amount of regulation, so that's not a free-for-all dogfight. And maybe at the same time, for the people who were against paid mods, the backlash wouldn't be nearly as severe as what we had a few months ago.
Awesome. So we're going to get back into Fallout 4 instead of going on the paid mods rant, because that one gets a little bit out of control. What do you think about Fallout 4's voice protagonist? Do you think that that's going to add to the game, or do you think it's going to kind of take away from the role-playing experience?
My initial feelings on that are that it's going to be very good for the first initial playthrough, because I think it's really going to help get, especially new players, get really into the world of Fallout, to get an idea of what this player character is going through and how they're coping with everything that's going on around them. I think it's also good for replayability, because at the same time, that helps further reiterate this idea that, hey, I want to play through this game in a different way. I want to see how they're going to say certain lines, or what they will say based on what happens in quests, based on the decisions I make. At the same time, I can understand from a role player's perspective how it might take them a little bit out of the experience if they're trying to create different types of characters, because one of the popular mods that's been around for a while is an alternate start mod for role players, so that you don't have to play through the same initial story. You can play as a quote-unquote different character from a role player's perspective, and I could see where that might be an issue if you're having the same voice with the same responses every single time. Some people might argue this is still the same, though, with the previous games, because the text is still going to be the same. I think... and that's totally valid. I just think it's going to be a little bit more in your face now that it's going to be a voice instead of just the text.
I think what concerned me more so than having the protagonist's voice throughout the entire thing was actually just the start of the game. Like, this is before the inevitable alternate start mod that's going to be made, and I'm going to download it as soon as I can and play that. But I feel like when I'm trying to make a role-playing character, and every character I make goes through the same thing, like the same, I have a wife and kid, and now I lost my wife and kid, and now this is the reason, this is what's driving me at the start of the game. I feel like that's going to take me away from the role-playing experience a lot, having every character start out the exact same way. Because, I mean, if I try to make like a goody two-shoes guy, maybe that's how he starts. But if I want to make like a really disgusting, rugged bandit character, does it really make sense for that to be his motivation?
Right, and so...
This happened in Fallout 3 as well, where you would always end up outside, you'd always go through the vault, and you would be kicked out of the vault or whatever happened, right? But the difference with that was you could kind of go through your life and make a few choices earlier to shape what your character is.
I feel like that might also be possible based on some of the, and this is just speculation, just based on some of the limited stuff we've seen from the opening. One of the examples is when you're talking to the Vault Tech employee, one of the options you can just tell them is straight out, well, I suppose you can bleep it out, fuck you, is one of the dialogue options to say to the guy. And I don't know if that's going to really make that much of a difference, but I feel like at the very least that role player start might be a good start for some people, just because they won't be going through that same backstory. Whether or not the voice lines might become an issue is something that's kind of yet to be seen.
Well, that's another thing, too. As soon as any created quests or modded quests come out, you're not going to have the main character voice, which is going to be a little bit jarring to get used to, right?
And that actually brings up a whole other point. Like, how are you going to have people respond to that? Are you going to have to just have custom voice acting? Is there going to be a way to...
please, no.
Is there going to be a way to just have the character's mouth stay silent, but then just say, this mod requires subtitles? Because, there's an option to turn on subtitles, so I'm sure during regular conversations in-game you can see what the Soul Survivor, which is what people are calling him, the Soul Survivor would be saying. I imagine someone will just make it so that his mouth will either just be moving with no audio, or his mouth will just remain shut, and then the dialogue will have to appear on screen as subtitles, and so the mod will say, note, you must enable subtitles in your settings to see the conversations for this mod.
That's a good workaround. That's still weird, though. I don't know. It's going to be a weird thing to get used to. Maybe it won't be as weird as I think it'll be. Maybe it's not going to be that jarring, but I don't know. I'm not convinced by that so far. So, moving on, what do you think about the bit of controversy over how the game looks? Both in the new art style that they've gone for, as well as just the graphical fidelity and how all the textures look and things like that.
So for the art style, that hasn't actually personally bugged me that much. As far as the art style goes, I think that while it was very good for it to really get you into the initial mood, it was a good mood setter in Fallout 3 to have that, the greens, but they never really strayed from their safe green and gray and kind of tan color palettes, and it was really just kind of getting a bit repetitive after a while. One of the first mods I know a lot of people will install is called Fallout, which basically removes that filter because it's just too much.
I did that.
And I think that adding some color back into the wasteland is a good thing. I think Todd Howard was even mentioned this in a couple interviews, but he was talking about how while it was good, it got a bit repetitive after a while, and that, just because it's the wasteland doesn't mean that there can't be color. And so that was something that they really enjoyed doing with Fallout 4, was to give it a little bit more color, make it a little bit more vibrant, but then they still have some areas where they mention how there's going to be like dynamic like radiation storms and stuff like that, and there's a certain area where it's like just scorched earth and still, really green and radiated, and that sort of vibe you would get from the vanilla Fallout 3 experience. So as far as the art direction is concerned, I think it was actually a change for the better. As for the whole graphic fidelity thing, I think that one, it's hard to say. As far as I've seen some of the console release footage, and I mean, for the consoles, I mean, it could be argued maybe it could have been a little bit better, but it wasn't that much lower than what I was expecting for the consoles based on the performance I've seen with other games being released on them. There has been some supposed leaked screenshots of the PC version on Ultra, but a lot of people are speculating that they're probably fake. One of the reasons being is that when they showed the options menu, it mentioned a certain depth of field option being on, but in all the screenshots there was no depth of field effect being shown in the picture. So people are just speculating it's just PlayStation 4 screenshots and somebody's trying to stir up controversy by saying, hey, look, the PC version on Ultra settings has these super high graphical demanding hardware and still doesn't look very good. I think it's just someone trying to, get everybody's jimmies rustled.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Bethesda's never been known for their amazing texture quality. They've never been known
for
making
a
the best
graphical
looking
powerhouse.
games.
You don't play their games for that. That being said, it's definitely a big step above Fallout 3. And I'm not saying that this justifies it. Mods will help with that, texture packs, shaders, etc. That does not justify if the game has very bad textures and all that. It will help to alleviate some of the growing pains. But I think the best option, especially for anyone who's getting it on the PC version, is to just wait until we get some more official sources besides some of the NeoGAF leaks, because everything right now is just very iffy, very maybe. We don't know if the leaked, screenshots are actually legitimate or not. So I think that's something to try not to get too worked up about until actually the game releases.
Like, do you think the new art style doesn't look a little bit plasticky almost? Kind of the characters look very action figure-y, and
I actually got that vibe a little bit during the trailer with Preston Garvey.
Oh yeah,
I did kind of get that impression. I think it's because they're experimenting with some new things. They've got the whole new volumetric lighting system. They're playing around with I don't know how to word it other than wetness, but like moisture on textures and stuff like that. And I feel like that might be part of the issue. Is maybe those just aren't playing as well together as they would like. My guess is it might have something to do with specular lighting, but I feel like that's something. And again, it's going to get thrown around. It's just inevitable with Bethesda games. Somebody's going to mod it. Somebody's going to either affect the texture. Somebody's going to do something to the lighting. But I mean, one of the mods for Skyrim was called Less Blocky Faces. So naturally, someone will probably make a less plasticky faces. Who knows?
See, if that's kind of the opposite that happened with Skyrim, because all the other face mods, a lot of them turned everyone into anime characters.
Yeah. Don't either anime characters or supermodels.
Yeah, you never. I'm still looking for a hair mod that's lore friendly. I can't find it.
It's not easy to find. Most of them are like, hey, look at these hairstyles that don't belong in Skyrim at all.
Yeah, I don't know. With the new art style, looks very kind of watercolor washed out almost, and I feel like that's kind of their compensation for the graphics not looking amazing. Because when you look at...
It almost makes sense in a way. I mean, if you look at the 1950s American art style, it was a lot of pastel watercolors, basically.
Yeah.
I don't think that was intentional, though, but... Again, I think it's just something that we'll have to wait and see. Mods might fix it, mods might not fix it. At the end of the day, I don't think it's an issue that's... It's not going to be one of the things that's going to drive the game down entirely. For newcomers, it might drive them away if the game's graphics are not up to where they were hoping. But for anyone who's a longtime fan, or for anyone who's just looking for the open-world sandbox experience with playing a character the way you want to play them, I think they're going to be just fine.
I think down the line as well, it's going to benefit the game more than hurt it. Because when you look at a game like Fallout 3, it looks like shit now. It's not a looker. It never really was either, and neither is Fallout 4 from what I've seen of it. But the art style is going to help it down the line, because when you look at a game like Team Fortress 2, that very simplified, washed-out art style still looks really good today. So it's going to have a lot more lasting easiness on the eyes for people who buy it, say, 4 or 5 years down the road. You agree?
Oh yeah, no, I think the game's art style is fine as far as aging goes. If anything, 4 or 5 years from now, with any luck, the game's going to have just as big, if not a bigger, mod community than Skyrim did. As long as Bethesda can, appropriately address concerns that the fan base has. If they do plan to do any sort of paid mods, they're going to need to be very careful about it. If they're doing the BethesdaNet website, they need to do it in such a way that it does not try to compete against, but just compete with the Nexus. And I think that will just help the community thrive on the whole.
Yeah, you need competition with these things. If the Nexus was the only thing there, then it would be getting everything. It could do whatever it wants. Competition is healthy, so just let people do it. If you don't want to use it, if people don't like it, they're not going to do it. And that's just how everything works. So let people try new things. I know we're not really super into that in the gaming community, but sometimes you just need to try. Everyone just try, alright? Anyways, thank you for joining me, Ben. Would you like to plug anything that you do? Would you like me to throw your YouTube channel in the description or something, or are you just kind of done with that thing now?
You know what, feel free to do so. One of these days, I'm sure I'm gonna get some sort of dorky fun idea to do for the channel. Something I would like to do on the launch night, if my computer can handle it. I would like to do some recording. I'd like to record some gameplay at 1440p, 60 FPS, see if I can stick that up on YouTube, just for any folks at home curious to see what the game looks like at its full potential.
Alright, so I'll definitely throw that down in the description for anyone who is interested. And this is going to be the end of this video, so I would like to thank you guys for watching. If you would like to leave your comments down below, you can go do that, and that'd be fantastic. I am PattyJack, this is Ben, aka Hangmanforhire, and we will see you next time. Have a wonderful day.